Workshop 1. This deck specifically is new, so good news, you didn't pay for this workshop, so if it ends up bombing, I won't feel bad. 2, being mic'd and streaming and being held into a box, that's new for me, and then the screen, so that'll be fun. The other thing that's new is all my technology. I had some technology issues at the end of last year, so I have a new computer, and I'm going to try to advance the slides using my phone. That'll be fun. So all kinds of new fun things happening today. All right, so the lost art of customer service, why do I call it an art? I call it an art because I'm going to give you a lot of tips and tricks today, but you're going to find out it's not an exact science. What worked today with one customer may not work tomorrow, right, with the next customer that comes along. I think there are some definite best practices that we'll talk about today and some things that you need to be aware of. But beyond that, it is an art form. It takes skill, and it's something that you have to learn to do. If you have a team that's doing it for you, making sure that they're trained, highly trained, and continuing to be trained is something that I think is important. So we'll talk about some of those things today. All right, so some tips for today. I always start with tips in all of my workshops. Here's the first one. It's important with this to think small. I'm going to show you all the areas that are touched by customer service, and it can or might be overwhelming. So the first thing is how do you eat an elephant, right? One bite at a time. So we're going to start, and I'm going to encourage you to start with the easiest thing to fix. What's one thing that you can fix today to improve your customer service? So that's the first one. The next one is to start now, and that kind of is the PS to that. When you think of the one thing that you can fix, do it today. Do it now. I don't care. Pull your laptop open. A couple of you already have your laptops out. Do it now. Fix it now. One of the things I'll talk about is autoresponders on chat and things like that in the digital space. Turn those on. Turn it on now. I don't care. You're not going to hurt my feelings. The next thing is, and this is sort of the opposite of the first bullet point, is to think about the big picture. It's important to figure out where does customer service fit into your organization? How does it fit? What are the rules that you're using? Who's the team? What are all those things? But really thinking about the big picture and how your customer service fits in your marketing, in your sales, in your advertising. What's its role, right? So my goal today is to help you think about why customer service is important. That's one of my goals for today, to determine how and where customer service fits in your organization, what we just talked about, and then to look at all the opportunities that you have for customer service. I'm hoping to bring out a few things today that you never even thought of that were customer service opportunities. The last one is to ask questions. We have a small group today. That's great, or a smaller group. Feel free to raise your hand. Ask me a question. I'm all game to dig in. I might have to tell you I don't know because this is the first time I've run this deck, but I'm happy to say that and dig into some stuff with you. The other thing that I'm going to do today is operate on a series of assumptions. So I did a workshop in the spring with Kelly and Startup, and it was on marketing and sales metrics and how to track and why. And I said about marketing and sales metrics the same things that I'm going to say here, which is one, I'm going to assume as far as customer service goes that you already have a solid product or service. Good customer service isn't going to fix a bad product. Now it's going to help, right? But it's not going to fix it. The next thing I'm going to assume is that your physical space, if you're doing retail, if your customer service is face-to-face, that place is cool and people want to be there. As good as your customer service is, if it's a bad physical location, it's not going to change a whole lot, right? So I'm going to assume your space is awesome or that you're willing to fix it. The next one is that you're willing to do sales and marketing. I think customer service is an integrated piece to both of those things. If you're not doing those, as I was saying at the beginning, one of the things that I do with Tinderbox, or before the beginning, so as we were warming up, one of the warm-ups I was doing was explaining what I do with Tinderbox marketing, and I work with a lot of businesses that don't know anything about sales and marketing. They're really good car mechanics, for example, but they don't understand how to do sales or marketing. That's okay if that's where you're at. You just have to be willing to do those things. Like, that's the assumption and the rule that I have for today. The next one is, yeah, buts don't apply. A lot of you might be thinking, well, I mean, hopefully you're here because you understand that customer service fits into your organization. I don't anticipate a lot of you thinking, yeah, but that won't work for me. I hate that. I think that's an excuse, right? I think if you're in the business space and you're dealing with customers in any form or fashion, whether it's direct to consumer or it's B2B, business to business, yeah, buts just don't apply here. This is one of my all-time favorite quotes, and it helps us make sure that we're all speaking the same language, and I've added on to it for this workshop. But I see customer service as an integrated part to advertising, marketing, and sales as it fits in your organization. It is a key part of those things, right? So for me, advertising is what we do to build awareness. It's the paid part of marketing. Marketing gets clients to know us. That's the storytelling part. And then sales gets clients to use you. That is that's the transaction. That's when money changes hands. The PS to this is customer service, in my opinion, gets clients to trust you. I have met people who say, I can sell anything. I can go out, I can sell anything. There's a firm that works out of Fellow, and they do marketing not similar to what I do. They do actual more deliverables like video and graphic design and content creation. They say all the time, we can sell to anybody. We can go out and drum up new business, which is a great thing to have in your organization. But it's what happens after the sale that matters more to me, right? What happens after you sell somebody? Anybody can do sales. I can train anybody. But what happens after that is also what's really important. So just to make sure we're all speaking the same language, again, marketing's telling the story. That can be anything from your website to a flyer like this, I'm gonna borrow this, to a business card. These things are all marketing. There's cost associated with these, but it's not advertising, because advertising is when we actually pay to reach an audience. That is paying to get our message in front of the right consumer. So it's Facebook ads, radio, billboards, whatever you want, right? So advertising is the paid piece. Selling is that transaction piece. That's what we talked about, right? The final stage where the transaction takes place. And then to me, customer service is that direct interaction with the consumer. Guess what? Selling, in a lot of cases, can be customer service, right? Most salespeople that I work with or have worked with in the past and know are also really good at customer service. They're there after they've sold the car when the car breaks down. Right? They're there helping a family when the house catches on fire, right? They didn't just come in as an insurance agent to sell insurance. They were there to solve the problems afterwards, right? So as long as we're all speaking the same language, let's move on. I think this is a really funny quote for a lot of reasons. I try to pick funny quotes for this. Either they're funny because of what they say or they're funny because of who says them. But this is from Bill Gates, and he says, your most unhappy customers are your greatest source of learning. And I'm sure they learn a lot because it seems like every iteration of Windows or every other iteration is not awesome, right? It's the every other rule. But your most unhappy customers can teach you things. I spent a lot of time in my business not paying attention to the feedback that I was getting. So part of my process in my business, of the sales process, is to sit and do a marketing review at no cost for anybody that wants it. And through that process, I give them feedback on the things I see they're doing with social media or their website, or if they want to send me their brochure, and I just take a look at it and I give them feedback. Here's what's working well, here's what I would do differently. Then I got to the end and I'd say, okay, here's what working together can look like. Here's my options for working together. This is the cost. And then I'd say, oh, I'm going to email you this PDF. As a PDF, I'm going to send this whole marketing review to you, no cost. And all I ask is that you just let me know what's going on after that. That was the sale, right? Well, then what I fell into was this trap of people just straight up ghosting me, like not responding. And I wasn't paying attention to that. That was feedback. It was an opportunity for me to learn. What I needed to do was let them know it was okay to say no. And I needed to be more intentional with that. So now I say, I'm going to send this to you. It's awesome. 40 pages of really good information that you can use today. Doesn't cost you anything. All I ask in return is that you just tell me whether or not you want to work together. If it's too rich for your blood to work with me, I get it. Not everyone can afford to pay for marketing. That's fine. You're not the first one to say no, and you won't be the last. But now that I'm saying that, people are responding and saying, oh, nope, I can't do it, but I really appreciate your time and thanks for everything. And guess what? Now I'm building a relationship with them, and they might be able to refer to me in the future. And that's all a part of my customer service experience, right? All right, come on, here we go. All right, so I do want to cover a few facts because I think it's important to understand how important customer service is to your business, because I don't think everybody gets this. So here are some things to consider. Number one, and this is all sourced, so I'll send you this if you want it. 70% of the customer's journey is dictated by how the customer feels they are being treated. Think about a restaurant when you walk in and they have the please wait to be seated, but then no one talks to you, right? How does that make you feel? Not very valuable, right? Think about any time you've dealt with customer service on the phone, right? That can change a lot of how you feel and what you think of that business. Businesses that deliver better customer experiences obtain revenues between 4% and 8% above their market. So right there, you can push your revenue up almost 10% just by delivering a better customer service experience than your competitor can. And you're like, Josh, I'm small. There's not really anybody who competes with me. I'm in a unique space. Those are all yeah buts. Doesn't matter. There's people doing what you're doing in other markets, so be better than them, right? I'm in marketing space. You know how many people are out there doing what I do? Add social media to it, and there's like 1 billion people doing what I do in any given market. If I can just treat people better than anyone else, then my business is going to be fine, right? And that's the rule I operate on. In fact, that's in my mission. My mission is to serve God by serving others. It's built into my mission. All right, 55% of customers are willing to spend more money with a company that guarantees them a satisfying experience. Anybody ever been to a Nordstrom's? We've all heard the stories of the one lady who returned tire chains there, even though they don't sell tire chains, and they took them back. Like, they're famous for their customer service. I don't know that they are as good on their return policy as they used to be, but you know who really is? Costco. I could take my laptop I bought there, run over it with a truck, and take it back, right? They don't care. Their customer is the most important thing to them, right? To the point of also, like, they treat their employees really well, which I'll get to in a minute, but their employees all wear jeans and t-shirts. But I can't tell you the last time I had a bad experience at a Costco, ever. Now, with an employee. Don't get me started on the people who just stand in the middle of the aisle waiting for samples. Not a whole lot we can do about that. For consumers, the customer experience will become more important than price and product by 2020. So this study was like a year-ish old. So we're already in the future. But based on this, this is the most important thing to people this year, is their experience with you. And then 70% of unhappy customers whose problems are resolved are willing to shop with that business again. So just because somebody has a bad first experience doesn't mean it's not an opportunity for you and your team to make it right and keep them as a customer. Comcast calls this a never-ending coupon. So they loop you in with a low price. You call customer service when your price ends at 6 months or a year or whatever, and you say, hey, that price is really awesome. I don't want to lose that price. What do I have to do? Guess what? They'll give it to you if you just call and complain, because they know it's easier to keep you than it is to go out and get somebody new. It's less expensive for them. So this is some of the things that we have to think about as we think about customer service. All right, where does customer service belong? Where does it fit in your organization? So I like this quote. This one's really good. How you sell matters. What your process is matters. But how your customers feel when they engage with you matters more. We've all dealt with that gross used car salesperson, right? We've all been there. It's not fun. I don't want to be treated like that. I certainly don't want to treat people like that. And that's what we're talking about, is making sure people don't feel that way. So when I was reviewing my process and how I was selling people and how I was interacting with them, one of the things I realized is they were ghosting me because I was doing something wrong. And I had to reevaluate that process. And it could be as simple as my price is just too high. And they didn't like looking at it. And they got sticker shock. And then they go, whoa, I'm not even going to email this guy back because that price was too high. So as long as I just give people permission to tell me no, they tell me no. And now I build a relationship with them. So thinking about where this fits, for me, it fits right in the middle of my sales process, and then it fits into my customer service experience once I become a client. So I fall on the marketing hub model all the time. This is my favorite way to think about marketing. So we always think, what's the hub, right? If we do our marketing advertising really well, where do people go to interact with us, to buy from us, right? So it could be your website, a phone call, maybe an email, could be all three, right? Could be a physical location. And then once they get to your hub, that's where the sales process kicks in. Once that sales process kicks in, the other thing that kicks in is your customer service experience, right? Now, along the way, there are other opportunities for customer experience to happen or customer service to happen. But really, once they get to your website and once they start interacting and they get, so if somebody comes to my website or your website and you have one of those auto chats turned on that pops up and says, hey, we're here, how can we help, right? Like, I will never call Comcast anymore. I just hop on a chat, right? Like, I will take chat 9 times out of 10. But that's their sales process, right? A lot of websites that sell you things that are e-commerce based, that have that chat box there, that's a sales tool as much as it is a customer service tool. So thinking about your marketing and thinking about if you do all those things right and people start coming to your website or your physical location, that's your sales process. It also kicks in your customer service process, right? So, we lost the connection. Come back, there we go. Okay. That's not so bad. If I didn't even say anything, you wouldn't even have known. All right, so I always think of it, there's 3 gears: marketing, advertising, and sales, right? They all have to be spinning in the right direction. But there's this bonus one, customer service. If customer service isn't spinning, right, it doesn't matter how good your marketing and advertising. In this case, it doesn't even matter how good your sales is. If your customer service team stinks and hates people, doesn't matter how good your sales are, eventually you're going to dry things up, right? And we can think of 100 examples of that. I'm sure everybody has an example of a business that did a really good job getting you in and then did a terrible job of taking care of you, right? So we have to think, if our business we get results when the marketing is doing its job, when advertising is doing its job, when sales is doing its job, and then when customer service is doing its job, right? So keep thinking about, are these gears spinning in the right direction? And this goes back to that early slide, which is, I'm assuming your product is good, and I'm assuming you're doing marketing and sales. I'm not here to fix those things. We're just here to talk about how it fits into it, right? So assuming your product's good, assuming you're a great mechanic, or you're a school district that takes good care of your kids, right? Whatever it is, as long as those pieces are already in place, marketing, advertising, and sales we have to think about, and then we have to figure out, where does customer service plug into that piece? So before we get into specific examples, there's another thing we have to talk about, which is your internal process. Now, I am a business that has an owner. Currently, I don't have employees, but I have in the past. So you could say owner, you could swap that with CEO or GM or whatever, but essentially the business has one person or a board that's in charge. We'll call it owner for this. In my opinion, now this, I'm going to be honest with you, this model I stole from somebody who stole it from somebody who stole it from somebody. I don't know where it came from. If you know where this came from, please send it to me. I wish I could source it. I can't. So this is not a Josh idea. I wish it was. It's not. So we'll just roll with it. Okay, so if the owner's number one job, or the CEO or whatever, and I know people don't think this way, but it's true, is to take care of the employee, right? My goal when I have a team is to take care of my team. When I take care of my team, guess what? They take care of the customer. If your frontline staff doesn't feel like you value them, they're not going to value the customer. I don't know how it happened or when it happened, but Gordon Ramsay and all of his kitchen nightmare and hotel hell, they've started showing up in my YouTube feed in like 8-minute clips. And there's this one that just showed up where he's going to this hotel, and the guy who owns the hotel also is the head chef. He has no chef experience, no hotel experience. And as Gordon Ramsay's kind of poking around, he finds out that nobody that works there is actually getting a paycheck. Now, I don't know how he pulls that off and how he keeps all these people, but they're not getting a paycheck. And Gordon makes this point. He says, when you pay your team peanuts, you get treated like animals. They treat people like, animals. When you're not even paying them, what do you expect them to do? How do you expect them to take your business seriously, and how do you expect them to take the customer seriously? I worked for a person, the person who actually showed me this did not follow this. I worked for somebody who put me on 100% commission and tried to hire me as a contractor, and then told me I had to be at a certain time between certain hours, which is illegal. If you're a contractor, the rule is you can't tell me when to be somewhere. You can ask me, hey, can you be here at this thing at this time? And I can agree to that, but you can't tell me as a condition of the contract, right? So this owner pooed on the employees any chance they got, every opportunity. If the customer was unhappy, this owner blamed it on the employees at every turn. If it works right, the opposite way, if that owner took care of the employees who took care of the customer's going to take care of the company. And the company's in turn going to take care of the owner. And when you have that, we win. But what happens is, in so many cases, like the one I just showed you, is that the owner does not take care of the employee. The owner takes care of the customer. How do you think the employees feel in this situation? So let's think of it this way. Very famous example. Let's pretend that the owner in this scenario is Amazon. Let's pretend that the employees are not Amazon employees, although they don't take very good care of their warehouse employees. But let's pretend that in this example, Amazon's the owner and that the employee is the vendors. the people who sell on Amazon. Amazon does sell products, but in the early days, after Jeff Bezos moved out of the garage, they didn't sell their own stuff. They were a platform for you to sell. What they do, though, is they take care of really well the people who buy on Amazon, to the detriment of the people, the employees, who sell on Amazon. Now, they're not hurting, right? They're making all kinds of money. But the problem with that now is that it's not only is it cool to hate Amazon, from the president on down, it's cool to hate on Amazon. But anybody who's thinking about selling in the online space does not think of Amazon as a viable place to build a market because they know this, right? So in the real world, I've worked at a business where the owner didn't take care of the employee. They took care of the customer, and it sucked. And I was there for 8 months before I was fired for not agreeing with that as a philosophy. Guess what happened? One of the people that was a customer of that company turned around and hired me to help run her business. Which, that's not like, oh, super awesome for Josh. That's meant to highlight how terrible that model is. You'll lose your employees. So if we keep doing this, what ends up happening is not good, right? So we have to keep thinking about what your role is in the organization, what your employee's role is, who's doing what. I think frontline staff should be like, I think they should be paid almost more than anybody else. Anybody who's doing customer service, anybody who's directly interacting with customers should be paid very well. The problem is what happens is restaurants' margins are so slim that restaurants hire minimum wage employees to run their host and hostess station, or to cook, or to do all these things. But if you walk into a restaurant and your first experience is with somebody who can't get off their cell phone long enough to acknowledge you, you don't want to go back there, right? Instead, you have the Costco model, which is everyone there is paid really well. It makes their shareholders really frustrated. They get incredible benefits, and their employees always seem happy to be there. Unless you're using your own bags, and I have the big green Costco bags that say Costco on them, and there's only been one time where they didn't sort of act annoyed that we had those. Like, they just we have our system, we want to use our boxes. Don't throw me a curveball. All right, this one's funny because of who said it. The goal as a company is to have customer service that is not just best, but legendary. And if I'm not wrong, Sam Walton was of Walmart, right? That's Sam's Club and Walmart. Now, you walk into any Walmart now, and do you think of customer service as being a pinnacle of that business model? No, but in the early days it was, right? And it was also, guess what? In the early days, when Sam was still alive, you worked for Walmart, you also got stock as a part of it. And they took incredible care of their employees. So the quote is good in and of itself, but we kind of have to pick what context we want to put it in. So the goal as a company is to have customer service that is not just the best, but legendary. So we have to walk through how to do that. Okay, so I'm gonna my timing is gonna be goofy, so hopefully we don't end incredibly early, but also hopefully I have enough time at the end. Again, I've never done this deck, so I'm trying to figure out where I'm at. Okay. Here are the ins and outs. I'm going to walk through some real world places where customer service happens. We're going to talk about my take on best practices. In the deck and then in the resource guide are a ton of links to where I found this stuff, usually through a Google search, but some of it was some resources that I knew about. So my goal is to give you as much practical information, the science behind it, but really to reinforce the subject of this. This is an art, right? This is a case-by-case basis. So here's some best practices that I've kind of come up with, or actually this one I didn't come up with. These all came from actually SurveyMonkey, which I thought was incredible. The first one is empathy, patience, and consistencies. Some customers are going to be irate. They're going to be angry and they're going to be mad. Others will be full of questions, and others, we've all had this, are just chatty. Maybe in their own lives they're just lonely, or things aren't going the way they want, and they're just looking for somebody to hang out with. Right? You just happen to be it. The bottom line is we have to figure out how to handle each one of those interactions on a case-by-case basis. That's where the art comes in. Not two people are going to be the same, right? I think about this. One of my first customer service experiences was at a ski hill. I had 2 jobs early on in high school. I was a snowboard instructor, which was direct customer service, teaching people and dealing with. But then my other experience was working in the rental shop. So this is where empathy, patience, and consistency comes in, because every skier that walks through the door, every snowboarder is a different level, different shoe size, different height, different weight. Some people aren't comfortable telling you their weight, but you have to have that for safety reasons. So to be able to interact with somebody and go, I'm sorry, I know you don't want to tell me how much you weigh, but in order to make sure you don't pop out of your bindings at the wrong time, I need that information. I'm sure you're an advanced skier, but you're renting. Are you really advanced? I'm sure you're more like intermediate beginner, right? Having those conversations was every person that walked through the door, right? Not to mention we needed a driver's license. And then if you wanted to rent just boots with your skis, we had to charge you extra because we had to test you. I mean, everything that happened in that environment was customer service. Getting them the boots and the bindings and the ski was the easiest part. Getting the information you needed was the hardest, right? So thinking about how each customer is going to be unique will help you set that expectation ahead of time. Everyone's going to be different. And that leads right into adaptability. You have to be able to make changes on the fly, right? Customer service people that are really good at their job shouldn't be customer service people for very long, because they should be incredibly good at this and an asset to your company. And you should be promoting them. My dad worked for Fred Meyer for 25 years. Back when they had like well-paid department managers, which is sort of weird to think of now, like somebody making really good money at Fred Meyer just running apparel. But my dad made a really good living just running apparel at Fred Meyer. And he said anytime he was hiring an assistant, he always had a number two, somebody, if they had McDonald's on their background, he would hire them immediately for a few reasons. One, they knew how to work, and two, they knew how to interact with people, right? And that was an important piece of being my dad's assistant. Adaptability comes into play. Think about, could you even imagine? I've never worked at a McDonald's. I can't even imagine what that must be like, the variety of people that you get to interact with on a regular basis. So being adaptable and understanding every customer, every situation changes every day, every week, all the time, right? The next thing to think about is having a strong work ethic. It's not easy sales I think is like one of the hardest things to do. I think the next hardest thing is customer service. Right? I always think of like hotel front desk people. Like that's interesting. The things they've seen, the people they have to deal with. I was just at a weird training. I mentioned Amazon an example. I'm partnering with North Idaho College on a workshop series on how to sell on Amazon, ironically enough. And we were asked to come out to Amazon to do some training. Well, one of the guys that was with us had flown up from Fresno City Community College. And Amazon has this whole travel department that was supposed to take care of us, and they were not very good to work with. They had me for a 3-day training. I was only going to be there 2 nights. They had me flying in and staying for 2 weeks. So I don't know where that got lost. But this gentleman flew in, has the hotel confirmation on his phone, gets to the hotel after his flight, gets there, and they say, we don't have a room for you. We see your reservation, but it's been canceled, and we don't know why it's been canceled. Imagine being in that situation on a regular basis. Like that's where having a really good work ethic comes in, but also being able to solve that problem, seeing that problem all the way through to the end. My wife I had this later in the deck, but it makes more sense to mention now. My wife is famous for getting on the phone with people in customer service who say, we can't do that. And she'll say, you can, you're just choosing not to. And she gets what she wants almost every single time. It's incredible. What you're telling me there's a law you can't refund this? No, there's no law. You're just choosing not to. It's a better line than put the manager on the phone. It's, I believe in you. You can do this, right? And that's work ethic, seeing a problem through from beginning to end. All right, what's next on this one? Knowledge. Obviously, your staff should know how your business operates. They should know the ins and outs. They should know the rules that aren't laws, but they should definitely know about your product. They should be able to answer questions. We've all had this experience when you're asking somebody who works for a company a question. Well, what happens when I do this with your product? And they go, I don't know. Again, I hate bringing up Gordon Ramsay, but he's blowing up my feed. Do you know how often he'll ask the staff, have you tried this? And they'll say, no, I've never tried this. Your team should eat everything on your menu, right? Everything, if you're a restaurant. You should know every product and service that you have, inside and out. Again, this is why we want to pay them well. Think about these 4 things in and of itself. Like that's a lot of skills we're asking somebody to come with, and then to work minimum wage and deal with angry people all the time. And then thick skin, I think it goes without saying, a good customer service person has thick skin. You're going to put up with a lot. Doesn't mean you have to take garbage from people, you have every right to say, I don't like how I'm being treated right now. You have every right to say that in certain situations. Yeah, if somebody's being abusive, I'm not saying, and I'm not advocating putting up with abuse or bullying or any of that. But having thick skin with somebody who's just mad because of what's going on in their lives, I think will get you really far in a lot of customer service situations. All right. Face-to-face customer service tips. Here are my tips based on how I don't like to be treated or how I like to be treated. Don't make me wait. My most famous story about this, I've told at almost every workshop because I managed to get it in, is I went to have lunch with a buddy at a pizza joint. We walk in, there's that famous sign that says, please wait to be seated. So we wait, we're chatting, catching up. Next thing you know, it's been about 10 minutes. No one has said anything, no one has come up. I can see into the kitchen from my sign. And in the kitchen, I can see 3 employees all milling around. There's no lunch rush. It's not busy, it's empty. We're just before lunch rush. They can all see me, I can all see them. No one said anything. Why? Because they all thought, that's not my job. Yeah, you have to. I don't care if I have to wait. Don't make me wait. If I have to wait, tell me. And a sign doesn't cut it, especially when I can see 3 people. Say, hey, we'll be right with you. I'm so sorry. If you're in a situation where you're dealing with high call volume and that's your reality, it's one thing to say, can I put you on hold, click, and not even wait for a response. It's another one to say, hey, we've got a lot of people calling in right now. There's a lot of stuff happening. We'll be with you as soon as we can. Can I put you on hold? Nothing is that urgent. I work with a company in town, they sell office supplies, and they joke all the time when things get too stressful in their workspace. They go, you know what? All we're selling is office supplies, right? Unless you're in healthcare and an ER, no one's going to die. And hopefully somebody from like an ER is here to listen to me talk about customer service and not making me wait. Not that I visit the ER a lot. So I don't care. If I have to wait, it's fine. But interact with me and let me know that's the case. Next one is smiling. This is going to come up a lot. Smiling, even when you don't want to, can make a huge difference. There's all the studies out there that talk about how good hugs make you feel and how good even just smiling can make you feel and change things and change your chemistry. Smiling not only helps you, but it helps the person that you're interacting with, even if it's over the phone. Don't forget to smile. There are so many people in frontline positions that look like they are so mad at the world and at life and at everything. Now, they're probably not being taken care of by the owner, but they should be smiling. I don't care what's going on. Fake it till you make it, right? That's not an overused saying, but it's probably on a shirt somewhere with like a glass of wine. All right. This one happens to me all the time. Keep your business private. I don't even know what's going on. It's not even counting your tips at the table. I don't even know what's going on behind the scenes. I don't want to see how the sausage is made unless it's a brewery. Like that, I want to see. I want a tour of the brewery. But I don't need to know what Susan's doing today or what Jeff didn't do yesterday. Keep that stuff to yourself, right? But that happens all the time. I've literally been standing dealing with an employee when another employee comes up to interrupt, to gossip about another employee. Like, that's your staff. Like, get them out if that's the reality that you have. But keep your business private. The other thing that happens is it's so tempting to blame or to shift or to gossip. Don't do that. Right? Keep it, and that's what my former boss did, who took care of the customer. That stuff should have been handled. If there was really an issue with an employee, handle that in private. Don't handle that in front of the customer. All right, and then the other thing is dress code. I clearly am not all business all day. Like I'm wearing a tie, but I've got Converse on and jeans. My rule of thumb for my business is I try to dress in what makes me feel comfortable and the people I'm interacting with feel comfortable. But not every workspace is in this boat. So I think it's important to have a dress code that everybody understands and make it easy. Restaurants that are all black, that's fine, but you've got to have a dress code that you can communicate. And I'll tell you, I have a bonus later talking about trade shows. I nerd out on trade shows. But trade shows drive me nuts because you'll see people work in the booth. I know it's like long and it's hard and you're standing all day and you're talking to people for 8 hours, 10 hours. But when you see them and they look like they just rolled out of bed after a hard night of drinking, like that doesn't come across well, right? Even Costco's dress code, they're not uniform, but their code is uniform, right? So whatever it is, have a dress code. Too often you walk into a place and it's either one too far on the... I worked at Comcast selling local cable advertising, so if you wanted to run an ad on ESPN here in this market, I sold that. And their dress code was business professional. And then I'm going out and working with people who have grease on their hands. Like, I'm not selling you life insurance. I'm just trying to sell you ads. I just met with one of the guys I worked with over 10 years ago, and he said they're just now changing that policy. I can't imagine going out into this environment, into the casual 2020s, and being dressed in a suit and a tie. Now, I wear a tie. It's kind of for fun. My shirt's not tucked in. It's all good, right? I'm wearing a North Face jacket, for crying out loud. But your dress code not only needs to reflect your culture and your company and your values, but it needs to also be acceptable to your customers, right? Think that when you are thinking about your dress code. What do your customers expect? When I go to an ER, I expect them to be in scrubs. If I went and they were all in jeans, I'd wonder what kind of healthcare I'm about to receive. What kind of shots are we? All right, and then here's a pro tip, count your customers. If you're getting customers coming through the door, right, you can do this in the digital space really easily, but if you're dealing with a physical space or retail situation or even phone calls, count them. You should be counting that. That's just sales, marketing, good practice right there. Be counting your customers. What do they do at Costco? They click you. They're not scanning your badge because they know you can't get out of there without your thing or your car. They're counting you.
Why do they do that?
To track volume and sales and...
So they know how many cashiers they have to have.
Yes, and so there's that practical piece too. I did a workshop in Colfax, and this came up, and the owner of the Napa was there, and I asked her, do you count your customers? And she said no, and I said, do you want to increase your business? And she said, yeah, and I said, well, how many customers is it going to take? I don't know, right? It's just a good best practice, but you're right, you're spot on, Will. Will has a great point. They're also doing it to plan ahead, which comes back to a customer service initiative, right? And it's weird. Haven't you ever noticed you'll go into Costco and it seems super busy, but then you get to the front and there's like no one in line? Like they're paying attention to the flow of their, and they just herd you like cattle. I try to go against the grain. It doesn't work. All right, what's next? The telephone. All right, we're going to spend some time here. I don't know. Oh my gosh, we might have to hurry up. Like I said, ebb and flow. We're going to figure this one out together. It's important if you have an auto attendant to think through what your message is saying. Here are some quick stats. I do not expect you to remember them. They're in the deck. I'll send them to you. When positive auto attendant paths and custom messages play, your sales can increase 16 to 20%. 85% of callers prefer on-hold messages over silence. Duh. Caller retention increases by 40% when hold messages are played. The average this is going to kill some of you. I know there's some of you are just going to curl up. Average small businesses are putting clients on hold for over 180 hours annually. Okay? 57% is the typical 57% typical on-hold client. So 50% of those clients, this is all from a auto attendant company, so their language is confusing my brain. 57% of people with an auto attendant receive at least 100 calls a day. 57% of those calls are put on hold for an average of 60 to 90 seconds, which translates to hours on hold every day. So, auto attendant. I had a client I was working with, their physical therapy. I called their phone. They didn't know this. It had been running like this for years. I called their phone. The first 3 words were cut off on the auto attendant. They had no idea. And it was like, her calling during my friend thing. I was like, what is happening? And she sounded angry, right? She sounded... So I used to do all the phone recordings when I was the marketing director at 49 Degrees North. I took it way too seriously. I went into every department and recorded all their hold messages. Number one rule I learned, and I learned this from a PR professional, first step, stand up. Stand up when you record your message. It puts you in a position of authority. The next thing is smile, even though no one's watching. So I prefer to record all mine in like a room where no one can see me. Otherwise, you're just like smiling like an idiot. But your voicemail is incredibly important along with your auto attendant. Make sure you're standing up for both of those. You're recording them with a smile on your face. I also prefer to script both of those out before I record them. A lot of auto attendant systems and even some voicemail will allow you to upload an MP3 file. So go ahead and record it. Put some music under there. Get crazy. Use GarageBand. It's free. Comes on your MacBook, right? So also there's a tool called noises.online. Again, that's in the deck. It has not only a white noise sound, it has brown noise, pink noise, all the noises for all the colors. Guess what? You think that's dumb? I told this physical therapy client, I said, look, your auto thing is killing you. So that's the other thing. When you go to hit record, you got to take a deep breath and let the system start recording. And that's why their words were cut off, because there's no like beep when you record in a lot of auto attendance. So I said, I'll tell you what. You can let the person who's doing your recording do it, or I'll record you a message and send it to you, and you can decide which one you like better. So I went into my basement, I borrowed a podcasting mic from somebody at Fellow, which is where I work out of. We kind of covered that. I recorded the message. It sounded kind of echoey, so I downloaded brown noise. I liked brown noise. It's just like a warm hum. I played that under. You're laughing. It's a thing.
It just sounds so sad.
I say that to my kids, and I have like 4 kids, and you can only imagine the kind of jokes I got when I said brown noise. Oh, Dad, was it a poop sound? No, it was, it's a hum. It's like a hmm. Anyway, put that underneath it, uploaded it. They were like, yep, we'll use that. Then they asked me to record their on-hold messaging and all their voicemail. So I say this like it means more than this, but those stats point to the fact that it does. It matters to people, the feeling you give them when because if they call your business and it's the first interaction that they've had with your business, if you sound angry and unhappy to be there and the first 3 words are cut off, what does that say, right? All right, so we got to think about those things. Next one we got to think about is your hold music, hold messaging. We talked about that. I don't mind music. There's lots of open source stuff out there that you can get. There's a lot of free stuff. Most auto attendant systems will come with options. But also on-hold messaging can be really effective. It's a way to promote things. I consider it part of a marketing plan. So some of those hub models I draw up for clients that have auto attendants, I'll include that as one of their marketing options because it is. You can promote things that are coming up. 49, I would record a new one for the whole system for every weekend because we always had events going on. So I'd be like, hey, thanks for calling 49 Degrees North, blah, 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 tagline. This weekend we have this, and then I'd get right into the menu, right? And like 13 seconds or less, right? Live answering. How do you answer the phone? We have a CPA who's amazing. But I kid you not, we are shopping around because the way they answer the phone. And I know Suzanne Weathers. I've met her professionally. She comes to some of the events I have. She's an enrolled agent, which is similar. And I met with her one day. I said, can I come and sit down with you and talk about switching? She goes, why? I said, every time we call our CPA, they're confused. Like, why am I answering the phone? Somebody told me to answer the phone. This is the first time I've ever answered the phone. They're like, hello, thanks for calling, blah, blah, blah. And then you go, hey, is so-and-so available? And they go, who's calling? And then you tell them your name. Well, I know they have a customer relationship management tool, a CRM, that they can type in and find out that I've been a client of theirs for years now. It's not hard, but they don't. And every time, and then when we pushed, I went to my CVA, I said, I don't want to say his name, so we'll call him Biff. I said, Biff, your frontline staff is killing me. Every time I call, I'm getting the 3rd degree. It's awful. And he goes, whoa, we get a lot of spam calls. I said, I have a cell phone. Have you gotten a spam call lately? Because I get like 10 a day. I get it. They happen. They're annoying. But that doesn't mean you should treat me like I'm a spammer. Figure it out. And he was like, man, he really pushed back. Guess what? Now I'm shopping for a new CPA. How you answer the phone matters. Oh, I'm skipping ahead on accident. Calling back matters too, but we'll get to that. All right. So how you answer the phone matters, right? What's your message? What's your business? Can I help you? And then there's the weird one, like if you called me, Tinderbox Marketing, and then I just put the rest on you. The whole rest of that engagement is in your hands. Instead of, hi, this is Tinderbox Marketing. How can I direct your call? How can I help you? What are you working on? What can we do for you? Right? Don't make the customer guess. It's like when you give somebody the phone number and they give it in a really weird cadence, like by 2s instead of like 3 and then 4. Don't do that. Don't make people guess what's going on. Calling back. Some of you might be in a high volume situation. Some of you like me might not be. And I am the worst offender on this slide and the next. But call people back. Do it as quickly as possible. Doesn't mean within 4 hours. Doesn't mean within 12. You can determine what ASAP means for you. But calling back is important. I will say I don't mind it when I leave somebody a message and they email me, but as a response. But you have to determine whether or not that's appropriate for your clients. It may not be feasible in your business model, but calling back, you got to do it quickly. And if you can't take care of their stuff right away, at least call them and tell them you can't take care of their stuff right away. All right, cell phone kind of falls in the same thing. When was the last time you listened to the voicemail message on your cell phone? I hadn't listened to mine for a while, and I rebranded from Tinderbox Consulting to Tinderbox Marketing. And after a while, it had been so long, people would call me and start making jokes. What's Tinderbox Consulting? Did I call the right thing? Blah, blah. I realized that's a customer service thing that I'm missing. If somebody new met me and then called me and got my voicemail, do they even know who they're talking to? Is it the right person? Don't record it in a bathroom. Recording your voicemail in the bathroom is the equivalent of a car selfie, right? Don't do that. So try to find a nice quiet place that doesn't echo. This isn't a good example. And record your voicemail. That's number one. Number two, how do you answer the phone? I got in the habit of answering "This is Josh" because it's direct and to the point. I should be answering like, "Hi, this is Josh with Tinderbox Marketing." What I get all the time, especially when I'm calling a cell phone. Now, I deal with a lot of business owners. So I'm calling business owners' cell phones for like the first time. Guess what I get a lot of? Hello? Hello? Okay. That's why I started answering "This is Josh," because at least if they call me, they know they're looking for me, but I know I could probably do a little bit better and go, "Hey, this is Josh with Tinderbox Marketing," right? Just add that in there, it's no big deal. Again, returning calls in this environment, incredibly important. Got to make sure you're returning calls. Text messages, okay. I tried doing a bunch of research on this, and there's no hard and fast rules. I do include a link on some etiquette for this. I was like a hard and fast, don't text me for work. I don't text for work. I text friends and family only, and now I text my clients all the time. So I think this is kind of a case-by-case, business-by-business thing. Some businesses are super cool with it. If it's just one and you and a small team, great. If you have more than probably 3 employees, you should take a good hard look on how you're allowing your team to text message clients and customers, because not only are there some customer service issues that we need to address, there might be some HR issues that need to be brought up, right? So this one to me, I think it was important to bring up, but I don't really have anything other than what I'll send you in the resource guide. You know, it's like emailing. Make sure you're spelling things out. Don't use a ton of emojis. Don't use a ton of LOLs and, BRBs. I have a 17-year-old, and he uses some of the weirdest ones, and it's like you're Indiana Jones in the 21st century. Like, I cannot figure out what he's saying half the time. Those commercials hit home when they're like showing eggplant. You're like, what the heck? What are we talking about? All right, so text messages, super important. Next one, the digital space. Okay, this is one a lot of people overlook. I think everybody, when you think customer service, you think, in-person frontline staff. You do think phone. You might think cell phone. Maybe you haven't, and hopefully that's a new nugget for you. A lot of people are overlooking this. It's 2020. Facebook's been around now for like 16 years. This stuff isn't new. We've had it all for a minute now. I've been streaming Frasier, and it took till about season 4 for them to mention the internet. So, if season 4 of Frasier is talking about the internet and acknowledging it, we need to as well. Right? So here's the first thing. I think this one's pretty obvious. Email etiquette means a lot to your customers. Email signature falls into that. But thinking about how you email, I looked up some rules. I found some from Forbes. They had a really good list. My biggest thing here, beyond spell checking and grammar and appropriate uses of humor, my big one here, and I need to get better at this, is respond to people right away, even if you can't respond right away. Right? Hey, I'm slammed. I can't get to this. Because if you wait 4 days, I don't know that you were out of town. If your email responder wasn't up, right? Autoresponder should be on here too. But email etiquette is huge, and if you can't respond, don't make me wait. Like, that's my big rule. Yeah?
How do you define right away? Because you said right away, and then you mentioned 4 days.
Right, so that I said with returning calls, I think that's an internal thing that you have to decide. My metric that I aim for is 12 hours. So if you email me at 5 o'clock at night, don't expect a response until the next business day, right? If you email me today at noon, I'm going to try to get back to you before the close of business. It doesn't always happen, so my true window is 12 to 24. I think a day is fair. I start wigging out when Gmail tells me I have an email that's been sitting there for 20 hours. And I'm an inbox 0 person, so I try to keep my inbox as close to 0 as possible, and I leave the things that are in there as tasks. That's not for everybody. I totally get that. I'm not telling you to be inbox zero, but for me, it helps me keep track of what I've responded to and what I haven't. Some stuff doesn't need a response. That's the other thing. So beyond what your window is, you don't want to get stuck into the, no, you hang up. No, you hang up. No, you hang up. Because I've done that by email and it's so dumb. So, case by case, take it in your business, but internally determine on the rules and then stick with it. Website chat. This gets turned on a lot of e-commerce sites, and then they're all over the map on where they land on this. Xfinity has it, Comcast, I've talked about that. It's important, if you have it, have one that your employees can log in and out of. And when it's not logged in, it has a message that says, hey, we're not here. And then gives them next best scenario. So we're Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. You can email us, we'll get back to you, whatever it is. But your autoresponder and website chat should be turned on when you're not logged in. When you are logged in, you should also have an autoresponder turned on that says, thanks for reaching out, right? We're connecting you to an agent or whatever the case may be. Website chat gets really overlooked. And then beyond that, you follow into some of the same rules. Try to be polite, try to spell check. All those first slide best practices that I had in this section, those all come into play when you're doing website chat. And I'll tell you, I've spent hours on website chat on behalf of my clients solving problems and learning things. There are some companies out there doing a really good job of this. So if you've ever used Mindbody to take a yoga class or anything, their customer service, if you are a vendor or a business using their platform, they're amazing. They'll walk through stuff, they log into your site and help you. It's great, it's top notch. So I would say Mindbody sets that bar. Xfinity somewhere middle of the road, I would say. So website chat, here's the big one. Social media direct messaging. They all have it. Facebook turns it on half the time automatically for you, and you didn't even know your business had it, and you had 15 sitting there that you didn't know about, right? You got to turn on your social media direct messaging, even if it's to have an autoresponder that says, hey, we don't check this on a regular, we check this daily, not hourly. If you want to get a hold of this, here's the best way to do that. I had a client that sells a product through an e-commerce site, and neither of these were on, so people were calling and emailing and they couldn't keep up. And I said, if you turn on one of these, even if you have an employee who doesn't answer the phone but could log into a website chat, you might be able to take 30% of the calls off your hands, right? And a lot of it's super easy, like, hey, I can't figure out shipping, or tax didn't add up right. It's easy stuff to deal with. So both of those are things that a lot of people are kind of getting into now. Website chat is usually a plugin that you have to install, but Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, they all have direct messaging built right in, whatever they're calling it. Facebook, it's Messenger. Twitter, it's a DM, whatever, right? And then here's the big one. This is the big one. I'm going to spend probably a good chunk of the rest of the time on this, which is 7 minutes, but so I kind of know my pacing now, but online reviews. Customer service nightmare land, okay? So let's look at an example of what not to do. Now, I had another example in here of a local business, and I really wrestled with wanting to keep it. I actually have two, really wanted to keep it, and I didn't. So we'll go with one out of Vegas. All right, here's what not to do. So to summarize, you don't have to read this. This is John S. on Yelp. He was going to Crown and Acre British Pub, which also was where I was going to be going that evening. And I'm just curious about where we're going. I was with a group of people. It was a trade show, so it wasn't like I had a choice, but I was just, what am I getting into? So he says, hey, came in at happy hour, ordered the fish and chips, and was charged $13.95, but the online price said it was $10.95. So now he thinks he's been ripped off. Ordered a Guinness, $6 happy hour price. He now doubly thinks he's being ripped off, because he goes on to say that 9 fine Irish happy hour price on the strip was $5. So they're $1 more for their happy hour than on the strip, and this place was off the strip. And he was ripped off on his price. Says, I won't be coming back, really disappointed. So the owner, right, jumps in, or Richard S., who we can only assume is the owner, says, John, I'm sorry you were disappointed with your visit. That's fine. Number one tactic when it comes to dealing with online comments and online reviews, whether positive or negative, is to thank them for taking the time. So it's the rule, right? When I say it's not a science, this is the science part. Every time somebody gives you a comment or a review, you thank them. John, I'm sorry you're disappointed with us. We take our customer service, and he goes on to say, because this is a negative one, so not only does he, he's acknowledging, but he's saying, I'm sorry you were disappointed. So I'm sorry to hear that. Saying that's totally fine. Even if they're wrong, even if the customer is wrong, Saying, I'm sorry to hear that is fine, right? It's not manipulative or anything. It's not passive aggressive. Sorry to hear that. That bums me out. He says, we take our customer service very seriously and never intend to take advantage of you with our prices. Okay, so I'm fine with all of this. This is fine. This is where it gets to not fine land. To clarify, our website lists the fish and chips at $11.95, not $10.95. So now we're kind of splitting hairs, which admittedly is an old price. Okay, so I think we're still okay. To be honest, this is where it goes really wrong. To be honest, we are locked out of our website for the time being because our webmaster went out of business. We aren't able to make any changes. I apologize for the confusion or frustration. Okay, so he doesn't argue. What he gets into is a whole nother thing, which is know all your passwords and stuff. Don't rely on other people. That's bad business, right? And I run into this all the time. But the thing that I have here is that he gets into a ticky-tack situation. He overshares and he argues. Don't argue and don't overshare. The one I wanted to share with you from one of the 5 local ski hills, I won't tell you which one, and it was basically they were commenting on how the business seems to be in decline. The response that this ski resort sent was epic. It was too much, and it was argumentative, and it was rude. You want to find some other really good examples of how not to interact with people online? Go to the Spokane County Sheriff's Facebook page. It's a very good example of what not to do. They had a case where they had arrested a Spokane police officer for a domestic dispute. And I don't know if you know the law, but the law in Washington is if you're called for a domestic disturbance, somebody goes to jail. Doesn't matter what. So they're going to figure it out the best they can. Doesn't mean charges are going to be pressed. Doesn't mean anybody's going to go to long-term jail, but that's the law. So they arrest this police officer, take this person to jail, and then the person was released and there was no charges. And they posted this on their Facebook page, and I can't figure out why. And the comments went so bad. It was like, this is just another case of corrupt, blah, 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 blah. And the department was responding and like arguing, like embarrassingly so. When you look into other state or into the sheriff's department law or like their organization rules, I don't know if they're bylaws or what, but basically department policy is that an actual department employee responds to every comment. So that was probably Knezevich in there arguing with people about stuff. Yeah, it was Ozzy. So just don't do that. Here's how to respond. This example, although it comes from Webster, it's actually adapted from the US Air Force and a group called the Altimeter Group. This is famous in social media circles. This is a triage map, and it's in the deck, of how to handle positive and negative. So your first thing is to assess, and then there. Bottom line, your number one goal when you have a negative comment is get the conversation offline. Thanks for taking the time to share. We're sorry to hear this. We want to help you. Here's a phone number or email. Call us. Don't engage online. Get that conversation offline, because then every other customer who goes there sees that you tried. And odds are they're not going to call you. They're not going to email you. And it happens all the time. But that's your number one responsibility. Get the conversation offline. Negative comments in the customer service space are gonna happen. Don't engage. All right, I have 2 minutes to get out of here. Now I have 1 minute and 10 seconds. You ready? We're gonna go a little long. If you have to leave, you're not gonna hurt my feelings. I wanna be respectful of your time, so you can get up if you have to. Wrapping this thing up, we have to think about smiling. That's my number one thing. Smile all the time, even when it's going wrong, even when it's going sideways, right? The next one is be a problem solver. Really go out of your way to be a problem solver. That's how people feel like you're taking care of them. When they come to you with something negative, when something isn't going their way, do your best to solve that problem. Take care of them. I am in the business of solving problems. I deal with this all the time. So I get it, it can be difficult. I think having a yes you can attitude is important too. I said this story already, but my wife is famous for saying that on the phone with people. You can, you're just choosing not to. Right? Or if anyone can, you can. I say that to my kids all the time. The next one is don't be afraid. I don't want to intimidate anybody. I don't think this is too much. I want to encourage you, but I also don't think you should be afraid to make bold decisions on behalf of the customer. That employee at Nordstrom's who took back tire chains that weren't bought from Nordstrom's, like put them, they are enshrined forever as pinnacles of customer service, right? It's okay to make a bold decision, all right? The next one is assess every situation on a case by case. And then the other piece to this is assess your internal situation. How are you currently handling customer service? I think it's important on two fronts. Always assess each customer service interaction and assess internally how you're handling things. Staffing and training, I think, is key. I think you have to take a good hard look at this point what you're doing to train your staff, what staff is managing customer service interactions. Do you have the right people in the right places? The other thing that might come up at this point is you may not know. You may not know where you stand with your customers. I didn't a few years ago. I had worked with a bunch of people. I'd done a ton of free marketing reviews. I didn't know where I was at. I didn't know if people felt like I was taking care of them. So guess what I did? I sent out a survey. I asked them. If you don't know, ask. Right? Comcast sends out 2 surveys every year. They send out one to customers, and then they send out one to employees. So they not only do a customer service ask for the people that make their business run financially from the customer, they also look internally, right? So send a survey, employees, or your customers, or both. And then the bonus one is trade shows. So I said I nerd out on trade shows, and here's why. You're gonna get people, there's 2 types of people that go to a trade show. There's the people who are standing, and they're smiling, and they're engaging you, and they have people at their booth, and people are excited, and the booth even has a little bit of a party vibe. And then there's what I see at the Spokane County Fairgrounds every year when the fair goes around and you walk through the trade shows, you see a lot of this. Okay, so if you're coming up to my booth and the front of my booth is there and I'm sitting back in the booth doing this, are you going to talk to me? No, and I can't get into the science of body language. I haven't studied it, but what I do know as a layperson is this doesn't work for anybody, right? And the other thing is it doesn't invite me in. You know, so my most famous example of this was going through the Spokane County Fairgrounds, and they're those brooms that aren't actually brooms. They have like the rubber teeth on the end, and the dude, man, he had the mic on, but he was engaged. He was like throwing stuff all over his little floor, and he's like, come sweep this. I bought 2 of the stupid things from him, right? I still have them. But he was so good and engaging. And the next booth over was like somebody who was quilting, beautiful quilts, but they looked like there was 100 other places they'd rather be than that fairgrounds. I get it. Trade shows are hard and they're difficult and they're grueling, but you have to take them seriously. And then the other thing is when it comes to trade shows is how you set up your booth and how you, what your attire is makes a huge impact on whether or not people want to engage with you. The other thing is follow through and follow up. What's your expectation when you meet people there and what's the follow up, right? So there's a lot of things that you could dig into with trade shows, but trade shows tend to get overlooked as customer service experiences because we think of trade shows as selling experiences. But really, for a lot of people, they're not going to buy from you, but they're going to see you. So what do they see and how does that impact them? I do end on one quote. You are serving a customer, not a life sentence. Learn how to enjoy your work. All right, so on that note, I went 3 minutes over. I apologize from a customer service perspective. I did not value your time enough, so for that, I do sincerely apologize. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you're more than welcome to get in touch with me. I said it before, but if you want a copy of the deck and the resource guide, please, please, please make sure your email is on there or that your card is in the deck or in the stack. The one resource that I didn't get a chance to talk about, there's a couple. One is called Raving Fans, and it's a book. It's told as an allegory, so it's really easy to read, but it's how to build a brand that has a really exciting customer service experience. And then the other one is how to be a good manager, which I think if you're going to manage people who are taking care of your customers, you have to be that, and it's called Radical Candor, and it's how to just have a really good boss-employee relationship. And she does not shy away from saying the boss. I know it's kind of trendy to not say you're the boss, but she's like, you are the boss. You're the one in charge, and you should own that, but there's a way to have a really good relationship and to manage your people effectively. So I love those two. Those are resources that are in the thing. So if you want the resource guide and a copy of the deck, make sure I have your email, whether it's your card or you wrote it down. Otherwise, I apologize for going 4 minutes and 37 seconds long. You are welcome to enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much. Oh, you don't. Your applause is appreciated, but it's not necessary.